Namaste, everyone. A very warm welcome to everyone who's joined us today. I, Deepti Kedawat, welcome you all on behalf of Aranya Vihar Trust. How are you doing, Ajahn?
Yeah, we're generally healthy and well, and we don't have much kind of impact of the pandemic here. So we enjoy good health and quite still a lot of freedom, and like I would say it's quite hot right now. Generally, I bet in Delhi and in India it must be even hotter.
That's true, Ajahn. For a change, this time we've not been talking about the weather because we're all taken over by the pandemic. But
Okay.
yes, also there have been certain storms and, different kinds of weather conditions, actually unusual weather conditions appearing. So there have been storms and temperatures come down. So that's a change apart from the pandemic that we are seeing. Um, so Ajahn, last time you've again been very generous in making yourself available for us today, and specifically moved by compassion for what is going on in India and of course across the world. We may have some people who were not there for the last session. So with your kind permission, may I please offer a short introduction?
Please, you're welcome.
And before that, maybe everyone, let's please join to pay our respects to Ajahn with 3 bows. So bow, bow, bow. So brothers and sisters, Venerable Ajahn Kevali is the abbot of Wat Pa Nanachat, the international Buddhist monastery of the Theravada Thai forest tradition in Thailand. Tanajan is a former German physicist born in 1968 and was fully ordained as a bhikkhu by Venerable Lumpur Liam in 1998. Ajahn Kevali has been the abbot of Wat Pa Nanachat since 2007 and was given a monastic title of Phra Kru Ubon Bhavna Vitet by the King of Thailand in 2014. Ajahn is the patron of Aranya Vihar Trust, providing us his wise guidance in the establishment and running of a lay meditation center in this tradition in New Delhi. We are especially grateful to respected Ajahn that 2 of the laymen of our group have been ordained in Thailand thanks to his support and encouragement. The COVID pandemic has touched all of us in multiple ways, whether physical, social, emotional, economic, and so much more. Anxiety, fear, and grief are being experienced all around. And on that note, we have deep gratitude that respected Ajahn has made himself available today out of his compassion to offer reflections on the topic, staying calm amid the turmoil of the pandemic. Before we begin, a humble reminder to all our brothers and sisters who joined. We request to maintain respect for the presence of Venerable Ajahn Kevali on video, just as we would do in the physical presence of a teacher. Kindly maintain a composed posture and avoid engaging in activities like moving, eating, taking phone calls, etc. during the session. After the Desna, we will invite questions from those present on Zoom. So with that, I would request the managing trustee of Aranya Vihar Trust, Anish ji, to kindly make a formal request for Dhammadesna to Venerable Ajahn Kevali.
Brahma cha lokadipati sahampati Katanjali Andi Varangaya Chatta Santidha Satta Parajjhaka Jatika Dese tu Dhammang Anukampinang Pajang.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami ito parang sakachang dhammo sotapoti. I pay my respects to Buddha Dhamma Sangha and wish all of you inspiring practice of Dhamma and having the Triple Refuge as your guidance and being open to listen to some words that I would like to share with you in the next 5 minutes. And hope you're well at home and safe and right now reasonably calm without too much distraction. Venerable Jyoti Dhammo sitting beside me, and you know, he's a Samanera now, and I think some of you have seen the Papaja ceremony which we conducted how many days ago? 10 days ago?
May 9th.
May 9th, okay. And I'm happy to see many familiar faces, and it's really nice to see you all in this slightly indirect way, but it brings good memories. And I also see Nitya Shanti, who's been a bhikkhu at Wat Pah Nanachat a long time ago, maybe 16, 17 years ago, something like that. Kind of nice to see. Also, Maitri has come. He's been a Pakao and Anagarika here. And then Tan Mahapanyu is maybe not free because he is like in the branch monastery with Luang Por Liam. And I believe at this time of the day, they probably have some work to do. He's applying himself diligently to all the kind of work and that he does together with the Sangha there. And Luang Por Liam is very, very good in applying the Dhamma to daily life and to useful things like looking after the monastery, building a chedi, and they just finished building a little new assembly hall. So in Thailand, we must say so far we feel very lucky, and the situation myself I'm in now is we're healthy. We have shut down the monastery, and in Ubon there weren't many cases, but there were some people that tested positive in our village. So that was the reason why we stopped going on alms round and started like shutting down the monastery again, as more as a precaution than as actually like a direct, say, necessity. Many other monasteries are still open. And right now we have like a few days until we have Visakha Bhuja, the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and final parinibbana. And we were just talking about what to do, whether we make a special event where we allow a certain amount of people to come in. And we thought of maybe planting a Bodhi tree in one of the new sites in the monastery, which is like a very beautiful gesture. And the Bodhi tree is actually a sapling directly of the it's like, let's say it's a grandchild of the original Bodhi tree because it comes from Sri Lanka, from Anuradhapura. So we also have some auspicious things happening in our life. We don't always have just pain and dukkha, grief, sorrow, and distress. We also have some uplifting, nice things happening. And I believe for all of you who are still healthy and able to join and have had a lot of exposure to Dhamma practice, this is a precious opportunity as well, and it's something to be grateful for. I'm sure feelings of gratitude and feelings of despair. Sometimes they come like a roller coaster in a period of like the pandemic and the facing of like sickness and death in our immediate relatives and friends group, and also of course in the surroundings. For me, it's more like far away, but I try to practice with the teachings of the Buddha to take these messengers as divine messengers, telling me ahead of time, you have to be very, very careful, and you have to be very, very, say, intent on doing good things right now by small little gestures, and also maybe some, I say, communal things that are more outreaching. And at the same time, when there's nothing we can do anymore, for example, at the end of a day of exhausting oneself with useful, helpful activities, then we need to be able to go inwards and calm the mind, and be able to sit down and let it all sink in. And without judging, without feeling good or bad, just simply acknowledging what has happened as a skill every day, being able to recollect. If there was something that we feel unhappy about, and possibly also say troubled in that sense that maybe there was more that we hoped to do, or more that we were wishing to send as a gesture to other people, we'll also have to call it a day and say what was happening today was good enough. We have done with our best of our intentions what we could do, and we have been able to do a certain amount of the good things that we wanted to do, and another part we basically have to surrender to say we leave it up to the future. And this feeling of calling a day to conclusion and not worrying about it another time is so crucial for our health, and so crucial for a sense of like uplift in the heart. And it is not a small thing to be able to say, let things be and put them down, and be able to still have a sense of wholesomeness besides all the unfinished business. But eventually this is what we train for with our whole life. It's not just like every day. It's eventually what we'll all have to face at times when our own health goes down, or basically when we get diagnosed a certain disease, or when we gradually become disabled. Even in a normal setting, we train ourselves to be able to see things as they are, as good enough, and rely on that wholesome aspiration that we have. Like, we dedicate our good energy of the mind towards that sense of everything is constantly a challenge, and we're helpful in meeting the challenges as much as we can. So that sense of like every day closing it and not lingering on, and not being able, not being say prone to the sense of grief and a sense of frustration. This is very, very much the heart of our training, and it'll help us when we ourselves face the final part of our life, where we have to say let go, or possibly bedridden, relying on care of others, possibly even have a lot of pain, and then need to be able to just call it as it is. It's painful, and live with it without sinking down further. So these skills of like recollecting and then being able to state this was what it was, and it was enough. This is of course so much in the heart of the teaching of the Lord Buddha, and also much emphasized in the forest tradition. I can hear Lompa Chan talking about it, and Lompa Sumedho definitely it's the way it is. And it sounds very trivial, but like if we take it as a kamatana, as an object of recollection, it becomes actually the essential, say, seeing the world through Dhamma, so seeing it as it is. I was thinking this afternoon about the chant that we use in our chanting book, which I know most of you have been doing morning and evening chanting, evening in the English version, sometimes maybe in the Hindi version, which I know can be chanted very beautifully as well. And then we have the standard Wat Banana chant one, and in the extended book that we started using a while ago, we have the Bhate Karata Sutta, where it says like, let's not revive the past and let's not proliferate about the future. The past is left behind, the future has not yet come. And it's tata vipassati, seeing that which it is, that which is that tata, that which is, seeing reality with vipassana, with insight, seeing through it, and seeing it without being threatened, without wanting to escape, wanting to change it, but fully taking it. And there's this beautiful word, pachupananjayuram. Yeah, like the pachupana is like a Thai word as well. Like they use pachupan for presence, and that's what it is. We accept the present. We accept that we have this one recollection at this moment. It's the way it is, and we're using that in order to transcend our projections and transcend all the say remorse, and come back to a feeling of I'm alive, I'm breathing, I've got a mind that is able to see through things. I can even take stock of a whole day that will never be good in one way or the other. I can take stock of a whole life that will never be complete in that sense. There will always be something lacking, and I can still say, that's it, that's good as it gets, it's good enough. And I'm saying this a bit kind of heavy-hearted, of course, because at the same time we have got a lot of sympathy for each other, and particularly if we are close to people that have real difficult health situation, are in despair and are struggling to make the basic needs, like provide the basic needs for breathing even. So if we have, at the same time, we have a sense of sympathy and a sense of understanding the suffering of other people, that's like actually a different dimension. We have like the sense of resting in ourselves, being able to take the situation and saying, this is, for me, it's the way it is. But for other people, many times we understand, oh, we'd like her or him to get more happy, to get more healthy, to see something that he or she doesn't see yet, and change the mood, get out of the difficult situation. So we've got our own strengths, like the realistic view, and then we've got the view of compassion, where we adapt to the people around us and try to send our understanding to them in their situation. Of course, then we also have to understand their situation. We also have to see why is somebody crying? Why is somebody in despair? And many times, this actually even more opens our heart. We see, like, say, somebody who has not, for example, practiced to look at old age, sickness, and death, be shocked and be taken by a situation like we face right now, even more so than ourselves who are practicing or trying to look at dukkha already many times, maybe in an experiment, maybe in a hypothetical situation, but maybe also like in a real feeling level that we're already experiencing. And then we see that it's not so easy for a human being to take that step, that sense of sharing. I wish I could be able to help this person a little bit. I wish I could be able to say, ease his dukkha or her dukkha a little bit. I wish I could uplift her or him a little bit. I wish I could take away the pain. And the last thing we want to say is, sorry, I can't do anything for you. I think that's a very, very bitter thing that sometimes we think we have to say, but we, out of compassion, we don't say it. Out of compassion, we take that very realistic view for ourselves with a big sigh and say, I see that's the reality, that's dukkha, that's the round of life and death as we know in samsara. That's what happens in a crisis, in a pandemic, in a situation that we are in. We can say that for ourselves, for compassion. For other people, use that energy that we have from our inside to make it a little bit easier for them, and try to give like support and say, give hope. Interesting enough, like the word hope is actually not very prominent in Buddhism. It's more something that is like in other religions, like religions of the say the big saviors coming, and we can hope that somebody will come, like actually in the Greek theater, like at the end of the drama, the tragedy, is what they call it, Deus ex machina. That's my basic Latin. I remember, like it's the God that comes out of the box when everything is in despair and nothing works anymore. And there's this little trick at the stage play where there's like some divine being comes in, and then everything is happy end. And that's a bit like the hope. We sometimes wish, we hope there would be a miracle, or we hope we had some kind of special powers or special coincidence. But realistically for ourselves, we pretty much know that we can't build our way of life on that kind of hope. Actually, a lot of the things really depend directly on what we are doing, what we have been doing, our state of mind, and the what we call karma, what we call cause and effect. And in many ways, we just have to say it's the way it is, the causes and conditions, and we have to just take it the way it is. So that thing of the hope is a good expression of human kindness towards each other. And I really encourage you, and I write these messages to Dr. Dahar, or like Bharti Mahapanya's mother, for example. I always say something that sounds hopeful, because basically out of the wish, like say that other people may not be hit so hard, but for myself, I have to tell myself many times realistically, be careful. You know, the world will have problems like this, and there may be even worse problems coming. And right now I'm in a safe place. Right now I'm healthy, but things will happen here as well, and to my life as well. So to be able to take the truth about life directly for oneself, and then be a bit more gentle with dishing out the hard facts to other people. For example, when I talk to my mother, I have to be very, very optimistic. I might myself neither be optimistic or pessimistic, but for the sense of support, for the sense of like helping to ease the burden, many times like point out the good things. And this is very much in line of like the role of a father, a brother, his mother, a sister, and a family, friends, to support each other in that way. And of course, it's good, like in many ways, to hold hands. And sometimes it's also okay simply to cry and say, this is too much. Then that's the way it is. Like it can be quite a relief, a way of like accepting the situation. This is sad, to say, this is sad. And then breathe in again. And once we've stated it, once we've accepted it, then we can change to a different state of mind. We can free the way to the ending of tears and free the way to possibly somebody says something funny again and we start laughing again. We can see the change, that it's not always worst. The worst thing is like mathematically, the minimum is like the point where every other point in any environment around it goes upwards. So we can contemplate that once we stated, oh, this is really bad. Afterwards, it can only get slightly better. Similarly, the maximum is defined. Like if you've got a parabol, the maximum is the point where every other point in any environment goes downhill. So maybe it's the best to have a flat line and maybe kind of get those ripples out and just be like going straight through life without like these hopes and these longings and these disappointments and the frustrations, and just evenly go through it and say, yeah, this is happening, this is past, next thing comes. We look at it with a calm mind and we revert to somebody who states, this is the way it is. And this is like quite strongly the message that I could hear Lompo Sumedo say, for example, you change towards the one who knows, you look at it realistically, you look at it, yeah, this is suffering, yeah, this is like the human realm, we're part of a biological system, it's hitting us like sometimes it hits other animals. It's contemplating the suffering of oneself in relation to the bigger picture, to the whole system that we're in. And sometimes this is a very, very liberating feeling of seeing, yeah, there's a reason to it. Yeah, there's many aspects to it, and through understanding causes, conditions, understanding that like this is not unnatural, this is not untrue, this is something that happens according to causes, conditions, and we can sometimes change our mood and be quite accepting and calm about it. So at the end of the day, we do these reflections, like I'm not blaming ourselves and also not getting, say, high about like some things that we have just like started as a new effort, but we just say it's good enough for today, and this much I've done, it's finished as far as it's finished, and this night I won't worry. This night I will just more or less like stay in the present, see the things as they are, and make my mind rest in that awareness of seeing the moment, seeing the things that are happening in the presence. And this is like practice of meditation, of course, and a practice of like vipassana. We say like we accept the good and the bad, the arising, the ceasing. We see the nature of things, and we don't invest the sense of craving, wanting it to be different, but let it rest and let it be. When I think a fortnight ago, no, longer ago, maybe a month ago, we had this blessing ceremony on Zoom where the Aranya Vihara Trust kindly invited all the leaders of other religions, groups, to share a blessing. That was very interesting for me as well, and I'm so sad that I don't speak Hindi. Would have been more insightful if I could get all the messages, but like just the expressions and the different takes on the reaction to the difficult situation, to the immense dukkha that everybody's facing now. It was very, very interesting, and I felt afterwards very, very, say, touched by everybody's expression of goodwill, and in that sense, there's a lot of like that embracing, hopeful message saying, let's see it positive, give it some good connotation. And what I found difficult was to accept the idea to ask for help from other beings, from divine beings, from God, and I found that very difficult. As a Buddhist, we're left with this dynamics of knowing actually we can only really help ourselves. That insight of accepting reality, accepting the suffering, that can only really come through our own, say, seeing through things and having solved the problem, seeing the answer of what is this, and it's like this, it has to be like this. This can only come by ourselves. And there was quite a few like expressions of very devotional, say, pleas for God or for say devas and to help. And of course, like also in Buddhism, we have that, like we sometimes, similarly to when we join hands with human beings that are in suffering, we ask for a joint hand from more refined beings, more peaceful beings, and all the holy, say, kind of beings in the world. May they help us, may they support us. But in the Buddha's teachings, we very well know that, like, actually the genuine help, that genuine understanding has to come by our own efforts, has to become by that insight that nobody else can do for us, nobody else can be insightful instead of us. Like, it doesn't work. Like, I remember very much my mother telling me very reasonable things as a school kid, and I just wanted to go my way, and she told me, don't be stupid. And all I could say, I'm not stupid. Basically, nobody else can actually install that, like, insight or like to be reasonable. In that sense, like that the final breakthrough of accepting things and really seeing through what's the cause of this has to come from ourselves. And to see through things many times in this complex situation that we're in is very complicated, and a lot of things are just like so, let's say overwhelmingly complex right now. Say, particularly when we think about what has caused like the situation now, like after a year of like dealing skillfully with the threat of the pandemic, now where did we lose it? What was it? And it's so complex and it's very difficult then to trace back. And many times, like, this alone is like a source of dukkha, to see how complicated the whole process of like and the international, say, threat going around the world, how complicated it is, and the economics plus the personal side and the side about the healthcare system and the side about, like, say, for example, charities or like things that monasteries do. For example, we usually like offer a place for people to rest and meditate. Right now we're shut, so there's a lot of conflicts and complicated things overlapping and playing into each other. That can be so overwhelming that every now and again we just have to also take a break from that and say, look, let's just rest with this and see that we may not know all the answers yet, but what we understand is right now, in the present moment, we can let things be the way they are. And whether it was 100% good, never be, or maybe 90% good, 60% good, or there was a lesson to be learned here, a lesson more to be learned over there. Like, let's just let it rest for a while until we see more that insight coming up from our own, say, inner heart, that we feel like now like this is the way to go. Like, it's many times more intuitive than analytical, or coming more from the heart than from the brain. If all the science experts were to come together and work on one solution, the pandemic would still not be over, because it's so complex. And we've got so many other problems that have already come from the whole situation. It's so complex. In some way, we have to reduce the scope to go back to our own situation in our hearts and really feel that presence of, like, still being able to breathe, still being able to say develop wholesome thoughts, abandon unwholesome thoughts, resting in the present, being able to call things as complete in themselves, with good and bad in whatever mixture they are. Come back to that sense of acceptance. And the whole kind of way of like trying to optimize and learn. It's more like something that we have to do like with our head and our like brain, our education, and the experts have something to say, and it's a lot about information and bringing things together and synthesizing some judgments out of it. Very, very complex. Sometimes we just feel overwhelmed even by that, and then we just say, look, let me just rest for a moment. Like I can't figure this out now. Let me just rest, and I just want to be happy in the moment. And this is also very, very much like something that the Buddha praised. For example, to be restrained, to be enduring things, and not to jump to a quick conclusion, just to basically have the insight arise from the present moment rather than from say speculative analytic thinking, to come back to that experience. And sometimes we may even experience that when a situation is overwhelmingly difficult, overwhelmingly complex, that relief of going to a simple breath or a simple situation where we can go to sleep with a mind that's wholesome, and wake up on the next day with a fresh breath and a fresh view on things. That is a gift of like of practice that we can cultivate in the complexity, to not only let things be and let them be chaotic, but also just take a step back and say it's enough, and I've done what I could, and I'm more or less like closing my eyes. I know I won't close them forever, but I close them for a while. Just give me some time. Let me just like rest a little bit. Let me calm down first. And this is like a bit the interplay with like let's say somebody who's skilled in meditation. It can go into a sense of like I'm closing my eyes now. I'm just having a break. I'm not even thinking. I'm just enjoying the present moment. And we know when we get up again, and when we say have to talk and have to walk, have to work, we have to do our jobs again, then there are challenges and problems haven't finished yet, but we can experience them with fresh energy. I think that's much of the philosophy between like say the sense of like patience, restraint, or even like seclusion. And we are practicing in seclusion, like the forest tradition. We have this ideal of like we take a break from the world, we go into the forest, we go into the caves, we go into what we call wake up. But we know like it's not going to be finished there. Like it's not like suddenly because we have a holiday, so to say, in a still, friendly environment, that afterwards there won't be any dukkha. So there's the slight temptation to think, oh, if I only could have that break and that sense stillness and calm forever, then all my problems would be solved. It's not so easy. Actually, the insight that comes with facing dukkha is maybe difficult to take, but it's the thing that I believe that was the breakthrough of the Buddha meditating under the Bodhi tree, realizing the way to face dukkha, the way to deal with dukkha, the way to take it and see how it is, how it works, and overcome it through that insight. It wasn't the break, closing his eyes and being in a deep meditative state. That was the energizing part. That's what we do when we go on retreat, or when we stay at home, and or when we close our eyes, or when we say even when we focus on, it can also be a chant or mantra, we're excluding part of the reality because it's so complex. We can't face everything all the time. So we just take it apart and be very, very happy with it, and have a sense of like resting in that. And then afterwards, it's like waking up and there's a new day, and we can see again more clearly. So in this, in the situation that we're in right now, I think many times we're actually forced to be alone, or forced to isolate, or forced to stay at home. And if we didn't have that inner urge to solve it all, and that inner urge to, I say, find out why, or like that hope, that kind of like that there may be some miracle happening. We didn't have that proliferations. We could actually just simply rest in that space and let things be while we are saying out of the traffic of the situation where we have to act and help and find solutions. We have a well-earned rest, and see our quarantine and see the separation from other people as something where we actually wholeheartedly take a deep in-breath and then just experience a small fraction of reality, but as a manageable one. This is how I see monastic life, and what we're doing at Nanachat as well. We're not so active in terms of helping society. We actually have closed our gates right now. It feels all right if we use that closing the gates and shutting down for gaining inner energy and inner strength. We use that period for like strengthening our hearts without having to apply anything, without having to do anything. Take it as a way of like retreating. And that's something that's very precious when the rest of the world is out of breath. We have still got some that maybe can contribute with that good energy. So being calm in the pandemic, I think that's the title of the talk. It's almost finished my time. And as it's the style in our tradition, I just speak my mind, and I hope that there is something that can be helpful for your situation. And I can summarize again that what my main points are is that like generally we do need some time to look at things by ourselves, and that insight is something can only really be done by ourselves, and that acceptance of difficult situations is something we can't even wish for somebody else to have. But if we have that in a small portion, sometimes maybe in sometimes bigger portions, then we get good energy and an uplift of our spirits from that. And then we can consciously maybe reach out and embrace other people and say, come on, I'll give you a big hug. Life's bad, I know. And we have that sympathy and that compassion towards other people. But the real job is going inside and being able to say accept all the dukkha that is happening. So that's my conclusion for today. I wish that it will be less difficult soon. And I also do expect a really big hope in the change after having been on a peak and or in a low spot. The surroundings can only be different. Can only the lowest spot, everything else can only come up. Every other spot in each environment can only be a plus. So that for reflection.
Thank you, Ajahn. You've offered a range of ways in which we can, look at the experiences that we are going through. So with that, now we'll invite questions from the participants. So if anyone has questions for Venerable Ajahn, kindly either raise your virtual hand on Zoom. You will find the option under reactions in the Zoom window. You can select the option of raise hand, and then we'll invite you to unmute yourself and ask the question. Or you could put it on chat window for the host Aranya Vihar Trust, and we will bring it up to Ajahn. Ajahn, the first question has already arrived, so if I may ask the question.
Yes, please.
Sir, Ajahn, the question is around the role of parittas, and especially, the story of Ratan Sutta. How does one understand is that Buddha is asking Anand to do the chanting, etc., to remove famine and pestilence in Vaishali?
Yes, very good question, because in fact the Ratana Sutta in this period gets very much quoted as like a, say historic kind of connection to that at the time of the Buddha there have been famines, droughts, and the say what's called a plague in Vesali, and it feels like the context of the story is from the commentary. So you can see there's a lot of like elements of like say that aren't directly in the suttas, and there may be quite a lot of like things that like represent the psyche of the people that compiled the commentaries much more than in the suttas, where there's also sometimes a narration around it or some kind of say story in it. But the the feeling of using the blessings of the Lord Buddha by giving a discourse is for me the essential message of the Ratana Sutta. The Buddha didn't go and just say use psychic powers to wipe everything away, but he used the Dhamma as a teaching. And the recitation of the parittas, we understand, has a teaching effect on ourselves, and it also has an emotional effect because it creates a bond to the Lord Buddha and a bond to the teachings, which is different than when we read them or when we speak them. Through the way that the Ratana Sutta itself is structured, there's a rhythm to it, and there's a little bit of an allowable emotion in there. Just chanting it can be having a momentum, makes the teaching applicable in that sense that it is like it is there. It is not just a dry say theory. That the Buddha may have, like, whether he actually really had Venerable Ananda recite the sutta, and in Thailand it's very important that he sprinkled the water from the bowl of the Buddha, which is the template for doing what they call holy water, namon. Mon means mantra, nam means water, mantra water, and it's in the Thai tradition. It's very significant, and there's a whole range of customs that have been derived from that, and I think it's very much present in the Sri Lankan tradition as well. Particularly recitation and the gestures of some rituals fulfill a role in say kind of like clearing out the situation, kind of giving protection, giving easing the situation. And I currently understand it, it's through the power of the Dhamma, and plus the Dhamma being in a very direct form that comes to the hearts easily. When one recites the Dhamma, one uses one's focus of energy while reciting it, and there's no particular right or wrong in it, but like there's a rhythm in it, and we use it like a little bit like to give us an emotional access to the Dhamma. And it may well be that the recitations of the Dhamma at the time of the Buddha were different than we do them right now. I think they may be more like recitation of a poem by a good poet, for example, in a book reading or so. But like it's noticeable that the most of the verses have got a certain meter and a certain rhythm. Yet there's also the prohibition for the monks not to chant them in the way that is done with the Sanskrit hymns of the Vedas, and not to embellish it too much, but it's just the right measure somehow to recite them in a flowing way and focusing with that the mind on the good energy of the teachings, which can work on the detailed level of what the teaching actually says, or on a general level of like the topic. For example, in the Ratana Sutta, it's the triple gem. And it means like taking refuge in the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dhamma, and in the qualities of the Sangha. And there are devotional attributes added to that, which may mean to us a little bit or more. The more we get into it, the more we use them. But they don't work like magic. It's just like, it's not like just by the power of the word or the sound or the, like, which maybe is like in mantra chanting in the Hindu tradition is the case, that you get certain vibrations that are healing. That's not the idea behind it. It's more like a way of internalizing the Dhamma and having it speak to your heart directly with a little bit of an embellishment. So this is like the story in the commentaries of the Ratana Sutta is quite a flowery story. When like I just at tea time we spoke about it. There's like the Buddha talks about then when he went to visit Sali at that time, the road was made new and there were monasteries built every yojana, and then the flowers and trees being growing everywhere. I just said to the Sangha, I think basically they were in a pandemic. They didn't have the budget to build roads at that time for sure. They were busy shuffling away like the dead bodies. Basically, it can't be that flowery. So it's a bit wishful thinking. It's a bit like that hopeful, like skillful means to make things uplifting for other people. I think you can see in that as well. But the message is clearly through the power of the word of the Buddha, the city was healed. And that is very important. Like there's a part about the spirits in there. Like it wasn't just the amount of sickness and death and the same mere say epidemiological difficulties with like infections and so forth and cadavers rotting away. There was also the spirits mentioned. And I do believe in many ways, like when we have the energy of wholeheartedly reciting a sutta like this, whether it's the Ratana Sutta, the Metta Sutta, the Mangala Sutta, these are the prominent ones which we use as protective chants, then it does something to our own spirit. It uplifts the heart to a very, very wholesome sphere. And if there's other spirits around, devas, brahmas, if we have got that power, or like other common spirits, like maybe the cat and the dog, basically they feel attracted to that. They feel attracted to the good energy, the wholesome energy. So we can see something of that sharing power of sharing wholesome energy and sharing metta. Mainly it's loving kindness and devotion that we express to that. And if there's devas around, I'm sure that that's the kind of thing they want to see. So they might come to give their blessings and their anumodana. So in that sense, I also believe that through chanting and through devotional acts, anything that we do wholeheartedly, we attract good forces. Whereas we can see anything that's in utter despair and going down into this very, very scary world that sometimes we see in video games or in like science fiction movies or so, where there's utter evil. Like you can see how much of a curse that is, opposite of a blessing. We can feel that literally. We're not so much exposed to these things but every now and again we used to drive in public buses in Thailand as monks, and they have got these screens. They have the monks sit in the first row. You have the screen right in front of you because the whole bus wants to watch some horror movie. And basically, even pulling your hat over your eyes, you still feel that shocking energy of like some of the scenarios in these action movies or in the game world. So by looking at the opposite side of it, how people get psychotic and on the edge of like this anxiety through having fed themselves with these horror scenarios, then we can also see possibly the opposite spectrum, the power of goodness, devas and brahmas, viharas, good energy, good wishes, blessings, that they do also have an effect on our mind, and it's a skillful means to help through a period of difficulty. So chanting the Ratana Sutta, I do believe, helps a lot.
Thank you,
Does that answer the question?
Yes, you did definitely. Thank you very much. And In fact, you mentioned despair. So the next question is how to not fall into despair by seeing the suffering of others. And if one does fall into despair, how does one get out of it?
I believe there are periods when we fully feel full of despair and frustration, and a bit say the general feeling of say a deliberate damage control for oneself, that one doesn't let one say indulge in that, like, and tries to be active, do something. This would be my feeling for the Sangha. We sometimes also have monks that are struggling with difficult periods, that we find some wholesome action, something that we can actually do with our hands and feel directly. And it can only be just a small thing. Sometimes we're not able to do much, but in that sense of like connecting to one's own efforts, that one can do something, I think it's very important in that situation of utter frustration, despair, that we still have a little bit where we can do something that is giving sympathy or good energy to somebody else, and it can be just a small gesture. Like I'm sure you have many little techniques to keep yourself at least slightly convinced that there is also wholesome things in the world. So, for example, in the midst of a very big shortage of support, somebody shares something with one, or we reach out and ask somebody, can I do this for you? Can I help you with this? Sometimes a bit more difficult when one is further away, but like to find some action that is punya, wholesome, victorious, do something that is generous and that brings us out of the world of ourselves, but like takes us to a sense of sharing. Utter despair, sometimes it takes a period of really having to suffer from it, but then to have that energy of like a wholesome good deed, even if it's just a tiny little thing, and say, yeah, like doing something meritorious and just really doing it. It can also be a letter to write, or I don't know whether people write letters anymore. Maybe a message to write. I think you're doing this. You're keeping in contact as much as you can. But I also believe one has to allow oneself the time. Like sometimes, like the suffering is really a lot, and grief, like I just mentioned, like it's also okay to shed some tears every now. Even though the Buddha says, like, what's the use of all these tears? It's like basically better it is to do wholesome actions. But sometimes we have to cry first. Sometimes we just have to feel the emotion in a complete way first, and then we can say, wow, this is actually how it feels, and then when you move on to there's always a little bit that one can do after having had like a very strong impact.
Jan, the next question is that in these times we are living, in our social circles, there's so much of fear and anxiety, and sometimes sudden shock coming out of, either death or a grave illness. So while as practitioners, one can, utilize many of the reflections you offered today, what can one do along with others who are not on the path of the Dhamma?
Yes, I think say acts of human kindness, friendliness, sympathy, and much more than direct, say, teachings or so. Or we have to then work from our own, say, like remaining good energy somehow, like being able to sympathize with people rather than coming up from this lecturing ultimate reality view that I mentioned. Like, for example, when I speak with my own mother, she's not a Buddhist, and she basically doesn't associate the same thing with like the word suffering. If I say to her, life is suffering, then she'll take it wrongly. If I say this to a Buddhist friend, he'll understand, oh, that's a realization, life is suffering. They find it's actually speaking the truth. They find that is actually helpful if one points it out. Like, so it takes a lot of interpersonal skills then to catch like the moment where one can actually say something that is meaningful to the other person and doesn't preempt the situation for them in more or less a gesture that makes somebody feel understood and feel like on the same boat. And the view around the world, like for example, we have the feeling that this is samsara, and what to expect from samsara can sound very, very pessimistic to people, and it's not helpful for many people. Even talking about the word anatta, one talks with like people from my own background about anatta, one has to be very, very careful. It can be easily misunderstood as something self-denying and nihilistic and negating the preciousness of life. So what we can many times use is like talking about nature, talking about like we say things that are accessible for everybody. For example, I mentioned the cat and the dog, and observing little things that are that speak Dhamma, and use those without not mentioning that it is actually Dhamma. Say, for example, Ajahn Chah living in the forest and having malaria, and basically in utter despair, not knowing what to do, and he realized, oh, the deer, the barking deer in the forest, they might also get sick. Nobody's pitying them. Nobody is looking at them. They don't even have that self-awareness to say, poor little me or so. So he got this little observation about like something from nature rather than from the doctrinal approach. To be quite skillful in finding ways of talking with other people that have. What's very difficult if people don't have a notion of what happens after death. I just had like a friend of my family in Germany die of cancer, and I was asked to give a little message on the phone. It's very difficult anyway to speak on the phone, and then it's very difficult if your friend has got a different worldview, and it's not even a Christian one where there is a sense of purpose, but it's a very materialistic, rational, empty, almost nihilistic view without like, having any emotional access to that there may be something after the passing away of the body. And I believe I reverted to the present to say, look, can you just be at peace right now? Can you just be say feeling, I let this be, I let this settle, and you've done all things you could. You've been a very, very good husband. You've been a very good teacher. You've been a very good like help for your wife and difficult situations. Sometimes we can use that to point out the good deeds of other people to make them feel a bit more having an anchor in those difficult times. And this is something universal. That we can say this to a friend from Islam or from Judaism, or like I believe even for the naked ascetics, they believe in good actions. So we can point these good things out and like find bridges and pick people up where they can relate to, and that we have to leave out certain areas. For example, like somebody doesn't believe in the law of karma, it's very difficult to talk about like what happens after death. But we can emphasize in the present moment, all you can do is be at ease and see how much good things you've done constructively, like I say, thinking about like all the wholesome karma without naming it.
That's very helpful, Ajahn. The next question is that on one hand, we believe that we are bound by our karma and are responsible for the result of our karma. Then how can we avoid the pain that we are going through by prayers to devas? Or should we understand it to be a feel good factor only?
Can you say it again? Avoid the pain, or what's it?
Yes, they are saying avoid the pain that we are going through. So
Uh,
one makes prayers to the devas to kind of alleviate the suffering.
right, right. Um, it's a bit like how can we really be responsible for the for like responsibility for our actions without like falling in despair or feeling like um, say in a trap of having done something wrong or so. But like there's nobody else there like that we can revert to that says like no, you're a good person and you've done it well, or like I'll protect you. So like there's no divine power, there's no devas like specifically giving us a hug somehow. So if we can revert to a sense of like I'm I'm actually having a certain area where I'm by myself, like very content about what I've been doing, very say in a wholesome way proud of what I've been doing, and we may be able to not revert to somebody else that like gives us that big emotional hug or like devotional hug or like that divine hug. So in one way, it does need a lot of training, and like you can't say suddenly, I don't wish to be embraced by some very or held by some very superhuman power. Um, at the same time, like we know maybe we haven't grown up to that level of like self-reliance yet. So maybe we need to find areas where we can actually again go back to our own action and say, I've been I've been always very responsible towards my family, towards my job, and this must be surely good. If I have some say some effects of these things, may they continue. May I be able to continue with all the good work that I've done. It would be a shame if all the say investment into my say workplace or the sacrifice I've been doing, that this was all gone. But this like way of talking is not a personal one. It's not like asking, "Can you save me?" But it's like working from one's own action to find a way of relating back to one's own responsibility. So far, I've been so responsible. Say, for example, I've been trying to be a good meditator. I know I haven't really kind of made a big breakthrough, but I'm working at it. And so to boost that energy of like I have something wholesome going for me. It's in the process, and um, and it would be nice to carry on with this momentum. It's a different thing than abdicating and saying like may the supreme bliss of the triple gem save me. It's not that easy. It doesn't exist as like a superpower in that sense. It relies on our relation to it and the energy we put in. So if we can find a reflection where we can relate back to our own good actions. I'm not sure whether I got the full question now, but like I believe that question was about like how can we live without the feeling something divine is going to save us, like um, basically through like building up recollection of our own good actions, which we know we've done in a responsible, pure way, where we didn't compromise and we did things really nicely and we did it with the best of our intentions. But just recollecting that good intention has a momentum of carrying us through because we say to ourselves, yes, there is a good force as well. And it lies within myself, with my own heart.
Thank you for that. May I ask the next question, Ajahn? So they say that the question is about the sixth precept, which says that to abstain from eating after noon. So can one lay person practice it even when meditation is weak and doesn't happen, or do it with right pitch where energy, work, and meditation is balanced? How can they start practicing it gradually?
Yes, one way is maybe to just simply reduce the extra snacks first, and not have the feeling to have to run to the fridge, or like I used to do in my university time, using chocolate and fast food on the way, just to kind of compensate for some stress. So basically, like gradually, like stopping the easy parts, like to be so heroic just to make a determination, say at 12 o'clock I'll drop the spoon, is maybe not a gradual enough training for us. We can ask Jyoti Damo, because he's been practicing the 8 precepts in lay life quite a bit. Like I believe like there's some compromises, isn't it? Like you work yourself through it and abandon the course parts first.
I initially started with skipping the dinner. So I have only morning breakfast, lunch, and then slowly reduce the back of.
Yeah, not to go too radical. Do it bit by bit and work from the spirit. It's about not indulging in sensual pleasures all the time and messing up one's schedule basically by having to run to the fridge all the time, or like to the microwave, or to the takeaway shop or so. This is like, and then later, I think it will manifest if one is like has a metabolism that actually needs energy in the afternoon. For example, if one has like low blood sugar or something like that, like sometimes it may be the right thing to have like a banana in the afternoon. So we can practice with the spirit of it as well. It doesn't have to be to the letter. And I think the question was also related to meditation. When we are like when we are, so to say, in the ideal world of meditation, we get all the special energy from the meditation, and the physical energy doesn't matter anymore. I would say that's a very, very advanced step. So I would caution to go into that idealistic way of thinking. Similar with sleep, I've seen over times, many times, that our monks are, say, very idealistic with saying we should only sleep 4 hours because that's what it says in Luang Pu Man's biography. But basically, we're not strong enough to do that. Our mind isn't resting in samadhi and peace enough in that sense that we can do with just 4 hours. So what we end up doing is like instead of meditating awake, we fall asleep while meditating because we didn't get enough like proper sleep. Similarly with the meal, like it's a question of balance, and the idea of restraint doesn't actually matter at what time you drop the spoon, especially for lay people. There's no kind of particular schedule involved, like for the monastic routine or so. People are like should be able to experiment and know their own balance well, and be able to have a sense of container in whatever framework they choose. It doesn't have to be after like not eating up in the afternoon, or it could be gradually.
Thanks for that, Ajahn. And just the last question now, that how to be compassionate towards oneself, and also tying it to the Karuna Brahma Vihar practice. In our group, we've been doing that a lot. So both compassion towards oneself and towards others.
Yeah, I believe that for many of us, the compassion to ourselves is the difficult part. And sometimes like it can be vice versa, that we actually induce a sense of compassion to ourselves through thinking about the goodness of other people. So, for example, if I feel very, say, in despair about like something that I did wrong, or where I misjudged the situation, was unkind or so, then it's very difficult to get myself off that hook of self-criticism. And but if I think more or less about like say, for example, the parents and wish them well, then I'm already in this topic of like metta in an active way, and then I should come back to myself as well. I can maybe trigger the emotion and the Brahma Vihara through thinking about something really lovely, somebody really lovely, and some very innocent situation, and it brings back strikes the chord of innocence in oneself, and we go back to ourselves as well. Usually by the textbook, we start with ourselves, but if one has messed up a situation, it can be quite difficult to start with, may I be happy, may I be happy, basically. We feel like a failure, basically. You know, it's good then to think about somebody that has been benevolent and kind to us, that we respect and wish this person well, and then experience the sense of loving kindness in an active way by knowing in this world this is there and I'm in a relationship to that, and then taking it back to oneself, and may I also be happy. And then we can go, if we feel too selfish after that, and we can go to other beings and expand a little more. It's an interactive thing with oneself and other people. Both can trigger that impulse of changing from a critical mode into a wholesome mode by the mere fact that it exists in the world, it exists in a living human being that we are in relationship to. And many times we really admire certain people, and it's good that we have that, because there are some people that are really pure in their way of relating to others. So there are many people that are very honest, for example, and we have that sense of innocence. We can consciously recollect that. It brings up a wish for ourselves to cultivate that innocence and that fairness in ourselves, and we feel less like doomed to be the eternal egotistic self-inflated person. We can swap to altruism, to seeing the altruism in other people, for example. So it's interchangeable. Classically, it starts with oneself and then expands to all beings. But it can also be, if we don't find it, it can also come from somebody else that we really respect. It could be a teacher, it could be somebody that saw was very, very helpful in the pandemic. Say some kind of like some kind of a living Gandhiji or Mother Teresa ji that we saw in one of our contemporaries down the street, and we think about this, how beautiful, and we nourish this for ourselves. Does that make sense? We use it vice versa, metta for ourselves and metta for others, and the wholesome appreciation of the goodness of other people. It leaves a trace, because we're able to do that. We must be also quite good in that sense, utterly innocently good. See the goodness in other people and are able to have mudita, good appreciation for them, then our heart is also uplifted.
And Ajahn, is it beneficial and useful to do chants of compassion towards others?
Yes, I believe that's very beneficial. Many times it's actually a skillful means, like to get the mind away from thinking unwholesomely about things that are like threatening, like the situation confronted with traumatic experiences right now. But it can also just be a real skillful means of paving the way for sila towards other people, generosity, acts of loving kindness in real actions in the future. It can really be like the the energy like already there for the next step then to come. And so it's like also very calming. To sit there and spread metta is very calming. It's both uplifting and it's also calming. And then you'll see that in the textbooks, it's actually one of the ways of making the mind approach samadhi as well. Because like that sense of like freedom from worry, freedom from sensual pleasure, freedom from unwholesome states of mind is like the practice that prepare the mind to get calm. It's very good, very therapeutic, obviously. And this is what all religions have in common, that sense of loving kindness, metta, compassion. And for us, it's special that it comes from our heart. That like we have to like have this situation, we can sit in our room and feel it, even though we're isolated, separated, we can still connect to other people in this on this heart level. And whenever there's a chance, I'm sure we'll show it by body and speech if we have the mind already. Another religion, sometimes it's like you should do this and that, but like for us, like sometimes we can't do it, so we do it in the mind, and it paves the way for the wholesome actions to come, and also helps us calm down and see some light at the end of the desperate situation that we're in.
John, we've come to the end of questions and answers, but your words have had a calming and balming effect, I think, on everybody's heart. So thank you very much for that. I'll just invite Anishi for a formal Anumodana as well.
Andamang Dhamma Kathaya Sadhukana Karang Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anumodani.
Can we also chant a little blessing at the end? I think we're almost over time already, but like just a little support for all the goodness that you all have in your hearts, and to balance all the things that you experience, an expression of our goodwill from here. Samparo kawinimutto sampasandha bhavajito sampaviramatikkanto nimbutto jatuang bhavasapitiyo vivajjantu samparo ko vinasatu mate bhava Vantarayo Sukhiti Kayuko Bhava Abhivadana Siri Sanichang Buddha Pachayino Atharo Dhamma Varanti Ayuvanno Sukhang Bhavatu Sammamangalang Rakhantu Sambadevata Sambabuddhanubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavantu Sambamangalang Rakhantu Sambadevata Sambadhammanubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu Sambamangalang Rakhantu Sambadevata Sambasankhano Bhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you very much. I believe Dr. Dhar might also want to say something.
Gratitude, Ajahn. Thank you very much for sparing time and joining us at this time. It has been a wonderful experience as usual. And thank you for your messages, which you keep on sending us and motivating and inspiring us to follow the path. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And thank you to Venerable Jyoti Dhammo. It's nice to see you in this role. So pleased. Thank you very much.
It was very nice seeing you. I saw many of the familiar faces, and wish everybody really all the good energy of the Dhamma practice.
Maybe Deepti can put in the gallery view for Ajahn.
We have a gallery view. We actually saw every one of them, every one of you, and now I see you in big. I've got this very nice big screen,
I see.
which we have behind the laptop, so I can see also Venerable Mahapanyu's mother, Avatiki. Hope you're healthy and strong again. And Soumya and Tasha, everybody, okay, and yeah, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very nice. Okay. I really wish that like you can breathe again soon. Like, and it seems like the numbers are going down again a little bit. Hopefully, hopefully, it can only get better after the worst part. You would agree as a mathematician, wouldn't you?
Sure.
It's really something like science can help us a little bit. And yeah, like here, like we still feel very, very fortunate, feel very blessed, but I can't help to be skeptical about like the situation here as well. We hope that we can be as a kind of like sooner or later part of some vaccine program that maybe kind of help a little bit. See how like, the bigger picture in Thailand evolves. Hopefully,
Thank you,
able to at some point visit each other again.
Let's hope so.
Please keep yourself healthy. Be super careful, especially the eldest of all. Okay. I think the video quality isn't so nice today. We were rushing to set it up because we had a long Sangati just now, like having various little bits and pieces to discuss. And it took longer. Made it in time.
Thank you, Ajahn, and we wish you and Venerable Jyoti Dhammo and everyone at Wat Pah Nanachat continued good health, and maybe see you soon in person.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being with us today.
Okay, bye-bye. So we'll close down. All the best to you. May the triple gem be your refuge. And
Yes, we'll bow to Ajahn once together. Bow. Bow. Bow.